Welcome, everybody. Thanks for making the time today. I'm delighted to be here with you. Hopefully everyone can see the slides on the screen now, and as I put in the chat box, the slides will be available shortly after this webinar on SlideShare. So slideshare.net/Liam Dempsey is where you'll find them, and I'll make them available for download there as well. So without further ado, let's get started. I thought I'd just spend just a second to give you an indication as to the audience that I presume is on the call today. I did get the list of various charities that have joined us today, and it's a great and diverse group, and that's fantastic. But as you can see in these bullet points here, I'm really focusing on talking to people who do work for charities, perhaps running the charity or in senior management level, and who are really eager to get better usage out of their website, to deepen their understanding of online marketing and how it can return benefits for your organization, and really more importantly for the people in the communities that you serve. And what we're really going to get into, and I'll touch on that just a second, is talking about increasing effectiveness of online marketing, mostly through websites. There are certainly all sorts of ways to do online marketing, but we're going to focus mostly today on websites. To give you a little bit of background on me, there's my picture, relatively recently. I own a small consultancy called LB Design. I started it when I lived in the UK, worked with a lot of UK nonprofits before I moved back to the US, where I'm originally from. And we now work with nonprofits and businesses in the US and in the UK, and even a little bit in Central Africa. And the last bullet point there is about my quirky daily blog called Chicken Monkey Dog. And the reason I mention that is we publish 52 weeks a year, 5 days a week, and we have done so since June of 2008. And so I really am familiar with the rigors and the requirements of online marketing, of online content generation. I really do have an understanding. In addition to all the work that we do with our clients and on behalf of my own business, you know, I've been there every day by midnight. We've got to have a blog post online, and that's just a hobby in a sense, so we don't make any money off of that. But I really do appreciate the amount of work that is required to generate content that an audience will like. Okay, so let's get into what we're going to talk about today. And really what we're going to cover, as you can see in the screen here, is the value of first impressions. And I've got some numbers to share with you on that. It's really pretty important stuff to make sure that when people visit our website that it makes as strong a first impression as we can. We'll talk a little bit about key tools for increasing awareness about your organization, really online. And of course, no conversation about nonprofits and online marketing would be complete without touching on fundraising, so of course we'll get into that. But I really have to spend just a second or two here emphasizing that we're only going to talk for about 50 minutes or so, maybe close to an hour, followed up with some questions if there are any. So really what we're looking at is very much an overview. And as you might have been able to gather in the promotional materials for this presentation, this is the first in a series, and Sarah and I and our colleagues at Tech Impact are still working out the finer points of the topics that we're still yet to cover. So I'd invite you to either in the chat box today or maybe email Sarah as a follow-up. There may be a survey at some point too, to let us know your thoughts on what topics are going to be particularly relevant to you and where you would like to see us focus in the coming webinars. So just to help everybody understand what we're not going to cover today, there's a big group of people, which is fantastic, but wonderful mix of organizations online today. So we don't really have the capacity to get into what's a great solution for you and your organization. There's just too many people on the call today. And likewise, whether or not you should be on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, I mean, that's really a question that needs to be evaluated within your own marketing strategy. So we won't be able to get into that. And as important as and as exciting as search engine optimization is, it's such a massive topic that, you know, we'll hint at it a little bit here and there, but we really don't have time to delve into it today. So if that is a particularly important topic for you, maybe you can flag that up in surveys or via email to Sarah, so we can make sure we cover some ground on that in the coming webinars. Then just briefly, if there are questions, please do use the chat box. I'll try to keep an eye on that and pay attention to that. I understand from Sarah that we don't have an overly tight deadline at 3 o'clock, so if there is a lot of questions, you know, I'm certainly available to stick around for a few extra minutes to answer them. And I can also pop my email address in here if anybody has any questions they'd like to pose to me directly. Okay, so let's go. I said one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is the value of first impressions, and we certainly appreciate how valuable first impressions are, as I say, in real life. When we meet somebody, when we meet a real person at a networking event or a charity fundraising event, we very quickly make judgments about that person, rightly or wrongly. And it's really not any different on the internet. So this is a pretty interesting statistic. Just take a minute to consider that. 55% of visitors to your website spend fewer than 15 seconds on your website. 15 seconds. So if we all just look at our watches briefly and we think about how short a period of time 15 seconds is, there's not a lot of opportunity for us to engage with them if we don't make a solid first impression right out of the box. There's just not time for that. It's just, we're going to miss it. They're going to land on our site and be gone. Following on, most websites have a bounce rate of 40 to 60%. And to give just a second here to explain what a bounce rate is, it's a Google Analytics term. And if you haven't heard of Google Analytics, it is a web traffic, web activity measuring tool that Google provides for free, Google Analytics. And Google Analytics defines a bounce rate as a percentage of a single page sessions, that is, sessions in which the visitor to your site left from the entrance page without interacting with that page. So that might be that somebody's coming to a meeting at your offices and they just need your phone number to say, hey, I'm around the corner, I'm trying to find a place to park, I'm 10 minutes late. So they come to your site, they see the phone number, they call, and they don't really engage with your page any further. You're going to get a high bounce rate with that, and that's okay. They got what they needed, and they were able to move on with their day and their business or for the day. But we want to make sure that we keep our bounce rate as low as possible, so that when people do land on our page, well, it's on a home page or further into the site, the content they find there, the messaging that they find there, causes them to want to get further engaged. So whether or not they read another link on our page, or they click on a form and say, I'd like to volunteer, or they download a brochure about our organization or our latest annual report. We want to move towards further engagement, just like we would do in say, meeting somebody in real life. If the conversation stops at, hi, my name's Liam, that's not a very valuable conversation for anybody. So in a website sort of way, we want the visitors to our site to engage more thoroughly and more in depth. So here's a statistic from the Stanford University, Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, pardon me for that. That 46.1% of people say a website design is the #1 criteria for discerning credibility of a company, but in our case, we can say nonprofit. And what they mean by credibility is really that the visitor to the site trusts your organization, trusts our organization to operate in a responsible way, a transparent way, that we're effective with the donation money that we receive, that we're effective at helping the people and communities that we say we're going to help in our mission statement, that our board really is working as hard as it can to drive forward that mission. The sorts of things that when we're talking to people, again, in real life, if you will, we want to convince them about our charity, about our organization. They're judging us, at least 46.1% of people are judging us just on the back of what our website looks like. And that 46.1%, I'd suggest is probably even a bit low, and this is just an anecdotal observation, but there are bound to be people who are subconsciously judging our website and just when it came time to answer the survey questions from the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, said that they weren't doing that. But I imagine it's probably a bit higher. So yeah, people are judging our organization just from our website. And rightly or wrongly, fairly or unfairly, that's really the reality. And when it comes to marketing, in particular, online marketing, perception is the reality. And so this situation where people are judging our website, judging our entire organization just off the back of our website is something that I call the Google standard. And if we think about this for just a minute, somebody is searching for topics around which our charity cares, so causes, and they do a search. And as they're using Google, think about the way that we interact with Google. We go to Google, we start to type in the words that we're searching for, and not only can Google find hugely relevant content for us about that topic, they can find it almost instantly. They can find it about any organization anywhere in the world. And as we've seen with their predictive text, Google's actually able to start to help us find us before we even finish asking for it. And so we have that wonderful search functionality on the back of Google and other search engines. And then when you land on our charity site, having just had that amazing experience from Google. But of course, the functionality of our own site isn't going to be the same, right? We don't have hundreds of millions to pour into R&D and how to improve our website. We have very limited resources, particularly from a Google perspective. But certainly subconsciously, many people are going to be carrying forward that expectation of outstanding performance. And I think if we were honest with ourselves, myself included, we would all admit to having done that at some point anyway in the past. And that's a problem, but that's the reality. And so we have to deal with that reality. We have to figure out how can we, as the managing directors of the charity, as committed staff members of the charity, how can we make sure that we're counteracting that expectation, or at least dealing with that expectation as best as we can. So one of the researchers out at Stanford is a guy by the name of B.J. Fogg, and he came up with what he calls the Fogg's maxim for credible design. And I'll read it to you in case there are people who have called in. It says, to increase the credibility impact of a website, find what elements your target audience interprets most favorably and make those elements most prominent. And really what that's saying is quite simple if we break it down. It says, find out who your target audience is. So who are you trying to talk to? Who matters to you? Who do you want to impress? And what do they care about? And then make sure that the website reflects those points. So it's not so much what do we as the senior management of a charity care about, and not so much what do our board care about, but what do the people we want to approach, that we want to draw into, or we want to support our charity, what do they care about? And I'm not saying that we want to step away from who we are or step away from our ethos or our mission, but we need to think about our ethos and our mission in a way through the eyes of the people that we want to attract. especially since we only have 15 seconds to engage with them when they land on our page for the first time. So if we're thinking about how to make a website, and we're going to either start one from scratch, or we're looking to freshen ours up, or maybe even rebuild, we really need to think about some aims here. What should we be trying to do? Even before we started getting into what should it look like, because there's a lot of different creative ways to achieve these same ends. But these ends are much more important than the design outputs. And I say that as a designer. I value design. I'm not trying to minimize it, but I think making sure that we focus on the aims will help us make the right decisions when it comes time to think about what color it should be and what type of tone we should take and what fonts and colors and imagery we should use. So if we think back to that Fogg's maxim of credibility, we really want to make sure that we establish that credibility. So what does that mean? I'd say that we need to convey the message that we're good at serving our communities, that we can be trusted with donations, and that we operate in a transparent way. Now, that's a very general phrase, and we would want to think about how to adapt that to each of our own organizations and each of our own missions. But just like we do when we go out and meet people in person and ask for support or try to get them to volunteer or we raise awareness, it's that same thing we need to do online. We need to have that same approach towards establishing credibility. And one of the ways that we can do that is we can make a connection with our visitors to our site. So are we using images that people find engaging, that accurately reflect what we're doing? One of the key ways to do that is to use images of people, the human face. As humans, we're social, we like to see other faces. And making sure then that we have that visual prominence of human faces on our site can be really powerful. We want to share our most important key messages. And what I said previously about it doesn't really so much matter what we think is our key message or our key message. What really matters is what our target audience thinks. So there definitely needs to be some homework here in making sure that what we think is our most important key message, what we think is our most enduring quality, if we think what we think is the reason most people give to us or support us or volunteer to help our cause, is why they're actually doing that. Do we know that for sure? Have we ever talked to them? Have we ever done a survey of our most loyal supporters? If not, maybe we need to slow down a minute and think about that before we get into spending any kind of money on a website design, to really know what resonates with people and equally what doesn't. And the last bullet point about guide to next steps or desired calls to action, I mean, that's really the emphasis as the internet grows up. In the previous years, it was if we were happy as organization owners, as nonprofit directors, if people visited our site, so they were aware of it, right? And the internet was new, but as we get used to surfing the internet and we realize that there's a lot of content out there, that we need to make sure that when people come to our site, they engage with it in some way. And more importantly, they engage with us. So we need to make sure that our site is designed and built and managed in a way that encourages visitors to send an email, to fill out a form, to make a donation, to pick up the phone and call. Something that says, I trust you guys to help with a cause that's dear to me. How can I get involved and support you? That's really what we want to do. It's not realistic to think that everyone that comes to the site is going to give a gift or give a donation. But if we can get people engaging with the site, maybe even just promoting one of our blog posts on Twitter, that's a valid engagement. That's a valid connection, because we can follow up that with our social media strategy and reach out to that person via social media to engage back with them, and then over time develop that relationship through the online tools that we have available to us. So thinking about our first impression aims, one of the things from a design perspective is that less really is more. If we want to emphasize our key selling points, our key target messages, our key messages for our target audience, we have to make sure that our website doesn't become like the salad dressing aisle. And what I mean by that is if we can picture ourselves at our local grocery store and we're just going down to get some, for me it's ranch dressing all the time, Hidden Valley Ranch. And I go into the salad dressing aisle and there have to be 1,000 different ranch dressings, or at least salad dressings, and hundreds of different types of ranch. And sometimes it's just a little overwhelming. All I want is a little ranch dressing. Can I just get some ranch dressing? And it's difficult to make a choice. It's difficult to know where to direct our attention. So from a design perspective, thinking about our websites, if we can limit the choices that people have to make, if we can focus their attention by not peppering them with everything that's great about our charity, and invariably there are bound to be loads of selling points about your organization. If we had to pick 2 or 3 that were the very most important, what would they be? And how could we represent that in a site? Visually, content-wise, call to action-wise, how could we do that? So I'm going to show an example here of what I think is the wrong approach, where they didn't take the approach of less being more, and they went with the approach of more being more. And if we look at this site visually, we can see that there's all sorts of different colors. There's all sorts of different words and different font sizes, and it's really cluttered with messaging. And as we gaze upon it together in this webinar, I imagine that some of us are struggling to figure out, where should we start? What's the most important thing? Where can I find out more information? There are just so many different choices. It's the salad dressing aisle. It's very, very difficult for us as visitors to decide what is the most important thing about this charity. What are they really trying to tell me? And maybe I already know what I like about this charity, but it might be very difficult then for me to figure out, where is that content, where is that messaging, where is that opportunity to volunteer for the part of the cause that the charity serves that is most relevant and most interesting to me. So here's an option. Here's one almost from the opposite side, and this is a very, very clean message site. It's about charity water is the name of the charity, and it's really clean and it's simple. There's an engaging photo of a young child, really clear message. You can celebrate your birthday for clean water. Start a campaign. There's our call to action, and there's our reassurance. Starting a campaign is easy. Admittedly, the phrase "start a campaign" could be kind of concerning. Could be, I don't want to start a campaign. That sounds like a lot of work. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that starting a campaign is easy was something that got added to the website afterwards. I might be wrong. I'm just guessing on that. But it's a very reassuring phrase there that the charity wants us to take an action. They give us a very clear message. If we can celebrate our birthday, we've all got one coming up at some point this year. Maybe it's already passed. We've got one next year. And we can start a campaign and we know it's going to be easy. It's just really clean, really simple, very easy for us to find. And then if we did want to dig into the site a little bit more, we've got these very clean navigation options for us, right? Very, very clean, very, very simple. So because we're talking about website strategies, it's probably worth spending just a few minutes to think about what tools we can use to connect with visitors. And obviously, social media is a big one. And I think the point for social media that I want to emphasize here is that just because there are so many options available to us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and so on, doesn't mean that we need to be there for each and every one of them. We need to be where it's right for our organization to be. And where it's right is going to need to be part of your marketing strategy discussion, your internal marketing strategy discussion. How much time, how much energy, how much resources does your organization have to put into social media? So, social media is free in the sense that it doesn't cost you to set up a Twitter account, but certainly it costs time and energy if we're going to put relevant, valuable content out on Twitter. So there's a cost. So we need to think about that. So yes, we need to be on social media, of course, but how do we do that? What's right for our charity? That's really something that needs to be decided at internally, so that the right amount of time and energy is put into that effort. Now, I know I just said you can be where you want to be when it comes to social media, but I think I put one caveat on that and talk about LinkedIn. And LinkedIn really, for me anyway, and this is just my own opinion, I'm sure others might have different ideas, but LinkedIn really is almost a business directory, if you will, of organizations and professionals. So what I would suggest is that while you need to have a website for your charity, your organization also needs to have its own page on LinkedIn, because people are going to look for you there. And I'd even go so far as to say that your key staff should have a professional profile on LinkedIn as well, so that there's that transparency, that visibility, that brand awareness that, hey, we're a real organization, we're doing great work, we're very good at providing for the needs of the people in the communities that we serve. And thinking back to that Google standard where people judge us very quickly, here's our very professional looking website, here's our very professional looking LinkedIn page. I'm not saying we need to get carried away and compete with Coca-Cola or Nike in their LinkedIn presence, but we need to have something that's clean and professional. But that said, I really think that our own website is our best tool. And it's our best tool. What if that jumped? Because we have the most control over it. Sorry about that, I went back between slides too quickly. So everyone should be seeing an infographic with a blue circle with your site in the middle. So if in the chat, if you're not seeing that, go ahead and let me know. So to explain this infographic here is the website, our own website is what we have the most control over. Because if we're the only ones who put time, money, and energy into it. And while we may create content like videos and share them on YouTube or on Facebook, or for that matter, Instagram, or we might have a status update on LinkedIn about our company, or even engage with our audience on Twitter. And we might even create a blog post on our own website and link to it from Twitter. Really, we want to push everyone towards our own site. Not constantly, not rudely, not overbearingly, but it's really our online home. It's where we have the most control. It's where we can offer the most opportunity for deeply meaningful engagement. So our donation functionality is on that. Our sign-up forms for volunteering are on there. The documents that support our transparent approach, our annual report, our financial documents are on our own website. So we use our website in connection with these social media tools, but really what we want to be doing is, by and large, pushing people to the website. Now, that doesn't mean we should never be linking to anybody else, or that we shouldn't be emphasizing putting some content only on Facebook and other content only on Twitter, or the other social media sites. That definitely needs to be part of our online marketing strategy, but by and large, we want to push people to our own site. And some additional points about that are that we control the look and feel. You may recall that a number of years ago, Facebook offered something called tab functionality. So on your page, your Facebook page, even for your organization, you could have different tabs. And a number of businesses, quite a few, a number of charities, put a lot of time and energy into styling those and making those look nice. And then suddenly, at the drop of a hat, Facebook decided they didn't want to offer that functionality anymore. So, you know, that's a real risk if we put a lot of time and energy into highly stylizing our various social media outlets. I think some needs to be done, but had that been investment that we put into our own website, we would still have that look and feel. We would still have the functionality that we need or that we want. That, just a point on that, functionality is on our own website, we really do decide what we're going to have. Do we want to have donations? Most likely we do, but for some it's not always the right approach. Do we want to have a blog? Do we want to have members be able to log in? Do we want to have the capacity to accept job applications through our website? Do we want people to be able to post messages of remembrance or of support through our website? There's any range of functionality that we could have on our website. But the point being is it's our website and we can determine what we want there. The next point about publishing and editing, I'm sure if I asked each of you individually, you'd all have some little story about wanting to make a change in your website and needing to email the person who manages the website to do that. And in this day and age, in the speed of internet communication, that's just really not an acceptable approach anymore. It's really potentially quite risky from a public relations standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. So you really need to be able to edit and publish in real time. If you want to change a blog post, if you want to add some new content, if you need to remove something from the website, or conversely, if you need to add something to the website, you need to be able to do that from within your own office or from your own phone and do it in your own time and not be waiting on some third party to do that for you. The other point about scaling, so maybe we just started our charity in the last 6 months and we're still getting our feet under the desk and trying to move forward. And we just need a really simple website, and that's what we have the resources for, so we go with that, and that's great. But then maybe we want to expand. We've gotten some key donations, maybe we've got some institutional support, and we have the capacity to make better use that's in keeping with our mission, make better use of our website. So we can scale that to our needs, because again, going back to the first and second bullet points, we're controlling the functionality. And the last point about owning the content, some social media sites are more transparent than others, but just using that Facebook and the tabs example, when Facebook killed that functionality, that content disappeared. And that doesn't happen on our own website. If we want to take some content down, we can, but nobody else is going to take it down without our permission. So we have that ownership, we have that control. So at LB Design, our primary tool for building websites is WordPress. And WordPress has grown a lot since we first started using it. We began to use it in 2007. We have made websites with other software, but really these days, WordPress, as far as I'm concerned, is the most versatile, the most scalable, and the most flexible. And to kind of talk you through that just a little bit, how can that play out for your organization? There we go. Why would we use WordPress? Well, it's really cost effective for building and updating websites. At the very basic level, you can go through WordPress.com and get a free website. For no money, they will give you a website that you can put your information on. Now, you have very little control over the branding and the styling and the functionality there, but it's free and it's hosted, and it's online. But, you know, by and large, I would imagine that most charities, that's not a great solution because there is some capacity to develop their own website. But it really is cost effective because it's such a popular content management system, something in the area of about 20 to 25% of the internet is currently powered by WordPress websites. So there's so many, because there's such a big market of websites running it, there's a lot of businesses and a lot of software makers that make tools and services relating to WordPress. So there's a lot of very valuable cost-effective approaches to get your website made. It's not something that nobody knows or very few people know, so you need a highly specialized skill set, and therefore it's very costly. I wouldn't say necessarily that everything should be done on the cheap, but there's a lot of different
providers of web design services building sites on WordPress, where you might find somebody as inexpensive as $50 an hour, or of course, if you wanted to put more money into it, you could easily spend upwards of $200 or $300 an hour. But the point being is there's a whole range of people and services available for WordPress because of its popularity. So that puts you, the charity, really in the driver's seat as the consumer, because there's a lot of different purchasing options available. WordPress started as a blogging tool when Matt Mullingwig first started using it back in 2003 and 4, creating it. It really was blogging, and for a number of years it continued to be severely limited by that shape. But certainly since 2007, 2008, which in internet years is practically the dinosaur age, it's really come a long way. And there are websites as big as Microsoft blogs, the New York Times blog run on WordPress, many government websites run on WordPress, and even small mom and pop shops run on WordPress sites because it is so powerful, it is so scalable. There's really nothing that you can't do on WordPress, whether you're trying to register volunteers, accept donations, conduct awareness campaigns, have membership where people can log in. You can have different levels of permissions, so your junior staff can add and prepare content that senior marketing staff can approve and publish. There's all sorts of scalability that you can get from within WordPress. But really, I think one of the most salient points about WordPress is how easy it is to use as a website administrator, as somebody who has to add content, as somebody who has to create a blog post. WordPress is one of the easiest tools to use. And I compare that to Drupal, I compare that to Joomla, I compare that to Text Pattern, I compare it to, I think those are probably the ones that I've used in recent years. And as you can see in the slide here, that because it's actually easy to use, people will use their site and they will keep it updated, and that's hugely valuable. I think we've all had stories and heard about, and maybe even experienced the frustration of not being able to edit our site, or it's so cumbersome to do so that we just can't be asked. We don't even deal with that, and therefore our website isn't as relevant. It's not as up to date. It's not as engaging. It doesn't have as much credibility as we would like. So the real benefit from a management standpoint is with WordPress, it's easy to use your website. It's easy to add content. It's easy to edit it. It can be done from your phone. It can be done from your iPad. It can be done from your office. It can be done from your home. And it makes creating valuable content, engaging content on your site so much easier. And that's probably its biggest selling point, because of the functionality items that I was talking about in the previous slide, and I'll just go back to that. All of the major content management systems can do that. I wouldn't want to say anything disparaging about Drupal or Joomla or anything else like that, but it's WordPress that makes it so easy to do it. When you log in, it's very, very easy to do that. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to transition to online donations and talk a little bit about them and what should we be aware of from a strategic standpoint about online donations. So for 2013-2014, online giving was up by an average of 13.5%. 13.5% is a pretty significant percentage jump. And from the same organization, Blackbaud, if you have not heard of Blackbaud, they make fundraising software. The Razor's Edge is Blackbaud. So large charities saw a growth of 12.7%, medium charities saw 11.4%, and small charities had almost 20% growth in online giving. 20% growth almost. That's a massive, massive number. to think about and to be aware of, and to say, well, you know, how easy are we making it for people to come to our website to make a donation? And going back to that initial conversation we were having about 15 seconds, if somebody wants to donate to our site, whether or not they saw something on the news or they got an email from their friend that says, hey, this is a charity I support, they're doing a little fundraiser, I'd love to get your support. Yeah, sure, of course, I'd be happy to give them, you know, $5, $10, $50, $100. If they come to our site and it's difficult to do that, if it's cumbersome, if they can't find it, we might lose that opportunity. And if we think about that from a mobile standpoint, from if they want to come from their phone, maybe they're on the train ride home at the end of the day and they just want to do a quick donation because they've got a couple of stops before they have to get off the train, is that easy to do on their phone, or is it hard? Do we miss that opportunity because of it? And speaking of what's called responsive websites, so phone-friendly, tablet-friendly websites, Google just announced earlier, I guess it was last week, that they're going to start to give search engine optimization points, for want of a better phrase, to mobile-friendly websites. So if you're not aware of search engine, how Google ranks things, it has a number of different parameters that it uses in its algorithms to measure the value of a website with respect to a particular search term. And there's a number of different parameters, and we don't have time to go into all of them today. But as of April 21st, so 3 weeks away, they're going to start to give points, more points, if you will, if a site is mobile friendly. So combined with online donation numbers that we saw a couple of slides ago, and the fact that mobile friendly sites are going to get more search engine points, that really gives us pause to think about and to analyze whether or not our website is optimized for phones and for tablets. And we can even, we should, let me just spend just a second here to go back and say that we can definitely know the percentage of traffic that comes to our site that's on our phone. I mentioned Google Analytics earlier as a free tool. Google Analytics will tell us the percentage of people that come to the site on a phone versus a tablet versus a desktop or a laptop. And in fact, we just launched, at LB Design, we just launched a website last week for a client, and I was looking at the analytics this morning, and I was really, really surprised to see that something in the area of 60% of all traffic to their website is from a mobile device. And I was really glad that we had made their site responsive, because the previous version that they had was not. But that kind of information is available to all of you and to all of your organizations for free. And so if your site isn't optimized for the web, for phones, aside from being concerned about search engine optimization from this Google note, it might be worth looking at analytics and seeing how many people coming to our site are you doing so from a phone? And I see we've got a question coming in here from David Kubaki. Does WordPress have easy-to-use tools to make your website mobile-friendly? And I will say, I'll answer that in two ways, and I suppose it's a political answer, in that it's yes and no. So the best way to make your website mobile-friendly is to have a theme that is built to be mobile-friendly. And we'll talk about the specifics of WordPress and how to build sites with WordPress in a subsequent webinar. But a theme basically is the look and feel of the website combined with its functionality that the visitors have access to on the front end. So you can make a theme that is mobile friendly to begin with. And that's really the best way to go. There are other tools, there are plugins, so that if you already have a theme and it's not going to be easily converted to responsivity, or you don't have the budget to make that transition with development time, there are some plugins that can help with that, free or low-cost plugins. that you install the plugin onto your website, which you'll be able to do for free as the administrator of your own site. That will help convert your site to be more mobile friendly. Those typically aren't ideal, and I don't know yet, I haven't had a chance to study Google's notes to know whether or not those plugin approaches are going to satisfy Google's concerns about responsiveness. So hopefully, David, that answered your question. And we're going to scoot on then a little bit. Come on. Here we go. So what are our donation lessons? The credibility of our sites are going to be a big factor on those online donations. I don't think many of us expect that we're going to get donations out of the blue from people, even if they see us on a local news story doing good in our community. We might get one or two. We'll probably get a fair amount of visits to our website. Will people come and check us out? But really what we want are those secondhand connections where our supporters tell their friends about our charity, and those supporters come to the site and make a donation. So things like credibility really factor in on those online donations. Making sure that the numbers, the financials, the work that the people that we're serving, the charity itself is transparent, who works for us, who's on our board, those kinds of things need to be easy to find. I think it's important to see an investment into a website as an investment in the charity itself. And, you know, I get that as a web designer, as a professional who makes money building websites, that sounds very self-serving. And I suppose at some level it is. But I'll back that up by saying that at LB Design anyway, we've never made a website for a charity that was able to take donations that hasn't paid for itself in less than a year in terms of online donations. So that doesn't mean necessarily that we should spend all sorts of money outside of our budget because we're going to make it back on donations, but we should definitely think about investing in our website because it's likely that we are going to see a return on that investment if we make our website smartly and wisely. And just as this last point is about online donations, and search engine optimization really are requiring these days mobile-friendly sites. And if donations weren't relevant enough or focus enough for our organization, certainly when the almighty Google speaks, we need to listen to that. Even if we're not hugely focused on search engine optimization, or we're not in a position to generate content at a pace that's going to bring us to the top of the search engine results page, we still need to be aware of that and do as much as we can to play as nicely with that as we can. So as we come to about 50 minutes into this webinar, I'll take us back through the key talking points, and then I'll open it up to questions if there are any. So thinking back to that 15 seconds, thinking back to that statistic, about 46.1% of people judge our website as a reflection of our organization. You know, that's really, really important. So we could be the best charity, the best group in our area, helping a particular community with a very particular need. And we might be hugely transparent in the way we do it, or we might be using almost no money from a donation for administrative reasons. But if our website doesn't reflect that, people are going to judge us and think that we're not as good as we are. So that's something we really need to be aware of. We've got to focus on credibility. We've really got to make sure that our website makes us look as good as we actually are, maybe even a little bit better, given the way that we know how harshly people tend to judge our website, thinking of that Google standard. From a strategic standpoint, we really do want our website to be the hub of our online marketing efforts. That's where we have the most control. It's where we have the most flexibility. It's where we have the capacity to control the content. We can scale it up and get as big a website as we need or can afford. And it's really the basis from which all of our online marketing efforts should flow. And then the last point was just going back to that notice from Google on search engine optimization and thinking about online donations and how those are only increasing, right? The age of the check is going away, and it's not going to be dead this year or even the next year, but more and more it's going to credit card donations, and that's very easy to do online. So we want to be aware of that and make sure that when we're looking to improve our website and its functionality for the benefit of our visitors, that we do so in a way that makes it mobile friendly. Okay. So at this point, I will open it up to questions if there are any. Doesn't sound like there are. Just double check the Q&A. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and your attention this afternoon. As I said, I will put these slides up onto slideshare.net/Liam Dempsey. I'll get them up there within the next 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll tweet out the address again on Twitter. I'm at Liam Dempsey on Twitter, and the company is at LB Design on Twitter. I'll push those both out within the next 5 to 10 minutes.